Before we begin with AIASF's year-end update, there will be many individuals and organizations to thank, all of whom make our work possible. First, our illustrious group of sustaining sponsors who support the work of our chapter throughout the year. Our copper sponsors are Caligari and Morris, Certified Public Accountants, Epic Clean Tech, Hanover Architectural Products, and Swinnerton. Our bronze sponsors are EHDD, HGA, Piatok Architecture and Urban Design, SCB, Siska Hennessy Group, and TEF Design. Finally, our gold level sponsors are HOK, RMW Architecture and Interiors. Could we please have a round of online applause for all of our fantastic sponsors? So here's the agenda for today's meeting. We will welcome our guest keynote address, and then we'll have some chapter updates. We'll celebrate the launch of our Small Firms, Great Projects publication. Next, we'll recognize the AIASF members elevated to fellows this year and provide updates on our relocation and capital campaign. It will then be my pleasure to present 2 presidential commendations before we finally elect our 2021 Board of Directors. I'd now like to introduce today's guest keynote speaker, Elizabeth Waddy, the Director of Current Planning at the San Francisco Planning Department. Liz's career in public service for the City and County of San Francisco has spanned over 15 years. In her current role as the Planning Department's Director of Current Planning, she manages the development review and historic preservation functions for the department. Liz and her teams help shape the physical development of the city by reviewing building permit and land use entitlement applications for compliance with the city's planning code, general plan, and adopted design guidelines, implementing the historic preservation work program, including the citywide survey, and by serving the public at the city's permit center. Thank you, Liz, for joining us today.
Thank you, Adrienne, and thanks to all of you for having me here to speak at your annual meeting. Just to kick things off, just take a few minutes here to introduce myself, although I know that to many of you, I'm not a new face. As Adrienne mentioned, I've worked at San Francisco Planning for 15 years now. So actually a little before then, I started as an intern in 2004, but I started in 2005 when I was just an assistant planner on our Southwest team. And over the years, I've had the opportunity to work my way up from reviewing the smallest of projects that we get in the department, like rear decks and additions, to managing some of the city's largest development projects. In 2014, I was promoted to Deputy Director of Current Planning, where my focus pivoted away from the day-to-day permit review to larger org structure changes and process improvements. And again, as Adrienne mentioned, last month, I was promoted to Director of Current Planning following Jeff Joslin's retirement in August. One of the benefits I feel of my lengthy tenure with the department is a real granular knowledge of the work that we do. And with that comes a pretty clear view of the field, really understanding our organization's strengths as well as our pinch points, and having that insight into what we can do to improve processes that are really within our control, and also how to navigate those political moments and that political terrain that's really necessary to make changes that are out of our control. I think, as we all know, land use in San Francisco is very much a political sport, and really being able to understand all of those different pieces and how they fit together, I think, is really critical for us being able to move the needle and move things forward. Identifying efficiencies in the work that we do and developing systems to improve the permitting process are all of the things that at least I professionally geek out on. And my main goal taking over this director role is to make our department really that gold standard for a public-facing government agency, with a focus on improving customer service through increased transparency, efficiency, and responsiveness. Although COVID has been really an incredibly challenging moment for the city, really forcing us to pivot to new ways of doing business, it's also shed light on issues that are long overdue for change, and has really brought a renewed multi-agency energy to addressing them. We have a long way to go, certainly, and the permitting challenges are still very real. You guys are really at the sort of dealing with that on a day-to-day basis here, but there are a few silver linings that I'm excited to share with the group. But first, I thought I'd share a little bit about what's been going on in San Francisco at San Francisco Planning this last year on the permitting front. So 2020 has been quite a year for our department in more ways than one. The week before shelter in place back in March, Rich Hillis became our new planning director following John Ram's retirement. And he too wasn't a new face for us, as he served as our planning commissioner for many years. But his priorities for the department really focus on bolstering racial and social equity into all aspects of our work, including the creation of a new community equity division, increasing and expediting housing production, and improving the permitting process, especially for small businesses. COVID has placed a tremendous strain on the city's permitting function, and I'm excited to share that the planning department, at least, has really firmly adopted the use of electronic plan review much faster than planned. Definitely one of our silver linings of this COVID experience. Our staff have really embraced digital plan checks. We're using Bluebeam, and to really use it in a formal or informal way, depending on the project, to do really nearly every aspect of our work. There's still a lot to do on the digital permitting front, but having our staff adopt this new technology with open arms is a huge culture hurdle that will really serve us well in the months and years to come. Although our city's efforts this summer to implement the formal electronic plan review process for building permits didn't go quite as planned and was ultimately put on pause, the planning departments worked with DBI to take over the permitting process for accessory dwelling units as a renewed, fully digital pilot program. And I'm happy to say it's going incredibly well. We applied some of the lessons learned from this summer's effort and are completing the intake process for ADU permits in less than 1 week now. We have leveraged different technology to give the public transparency into the online ADU submittals. We've made some back-end process improvements that we hope to replicate and scale for other project types in the coming months. But all in all, since taking over the permitting process for accessory dwelling units in early November, so just over a month now, we've accepted 75 ADU applications, totaling 115 new dwelling units. So we're really excited about our ability to, again, pivot something that didn't go well and really turn it into a positive and something that we can grow in the coming months. On the design review front, I'm excited to inform everyone that we've made some significant process changes in response to much of the feedback that we've actually received from folks in the architecture community. As some of you have known, we've eliminated our residential design advisory team, also known as RDAT, and we are significantly limiting the use of our urban design advisory team, or UDAT, which we have for our largest and most complicated development projects. This is in no way diminishing the value we place on design review by any stretch, but rather really an evolution of our process and a shift away and a shift towards improving the transparency and communication around the design review process we have. In lieu of these design review meetings, we are instead assigning a staff architect to support planners on projects as needed, and will relay feedback in a more timely and candid manner, ideally face-to-face or phone-to-phone, when we need to work through complications or compliance with design guidelines. Our hope is to really become more of partners with the design community in our efforts to make projects approvable, and know that we'll continue to iterate and improve on this process as we go. To me, that's really sort of the MO of this next chapter of permitting in San Francisco, is to not remain static in any of our processes, but to hear feedback and to adapt and to make changes so that we can continue to evolve. Our goal with these design review changes is to really improve, again, the transparency and efficiency around the design review process, and to be open to creative and innovative ways to solve design challenges. Lastly, I wanted to touch on a few items that the San Francisco architecture community should be looking forward to as we move into 2021, aside from a vaccine, that is. First up, more digital permitting is on the horizon. So as we get fully into the groove with this digital permitting for accessory dwelling units, we're hoping to add more project typologies into this fully digital platform in the coming months. We're looking at permit streamlining efforts for small businesses in response to the voter mandate of Prop H, but would also welcome ideas from all of you as to other bite-sized project typologies that would be helpful to move into a fully digital permitting process. One of the big lessons learned that we had from this summer was sort of going whole hog with all building permits was a bit much, but really being able to bite off project types at a time, I think, are really the way that we're going to be able to move the permitting process in San Francisco into a sort of 21st century affair. Second up, we're working on some legislative efforts to support small multifamily housing production in high resource, low density neighborhoods. To any of you who were watching the Planning Commission earlier today, we had a great presentation on our economic recovery strategy, and several of our staff architects, in fact, are supporting this effort. So stay tuned for more to come on that effort. Third up, changes to rooms down. Now this is getting a little wonky, but the zoning administrator announced a few weeks ago that we are revising the department's rooms down matrix. And those of you who work on small residential projects are very well versed in this document. But it basically guides our review of ground floor development in low density residential neighborhoods. This document's been around for a very long time and was created at a time when the city's policies really sought to prevent the creation of secondary units, and when there wasn't an avenue even for adding second units or legalizing units. And given the city's policy change around these issues, this bulletin is really out of date and will be modernized to give homeowners more flexibility around the use of their ground floor spaces, which is really a need that I think has become even more evident during COVID. Lastly, we are hoping to launch a whole public training and workshop program. Obviously, this is intended for a post-COVID world most successfully, at least is what we're targeting here. But we're looking forward to kicking off a series of public workshops and trainings on the permitting process and planning code to, again, improve transparency into the complex and ever-changing process that we work within here in San Francisco. We would love to hear your suggestions on topics and tools that would be most helpful for you and your clients. And I'm anticipating that this will likely kick off in the later part of 2021, but are really starting to think through what that program will look like. So again, more to come on that, but we would love to get your feedback as well. And before I wrap here, I just wanted to share with the group that Director Hillis and I have been meeting quarterly, and more frequently as specific topics arise with the PPAC. They are the primary avenue for dialogue between the city's architectural community and the department, and I would encourage anyone who's interested in engaging around process improvements or other development review topics to reach out to the PPAC. Several of the topics that I've discussed today were actually ideas generated by the PPAC, and we also have been talking through several other legislative proposals that are working their way through the process right now. So it's been a great relationship that we've begun to build, and look forward to evolving it even more over the months and years to come. And so with that, that concludes my opening remarks. Thank you again for having me, and with that, I will turn it back to Adrian to continue the presentation.
Thanks, Liz. I think there's a lot going on with the city, and we've been so grateful for the collaborative spirit of both you and Rich. So thank you. While 2020 has certainly presented more than its fair share of challenges, AIA San Francisco has had a strong year in support of our mission committed to enhancing the quality of life in the Bay Area by promoting excellence in architecture, design, and the built environment. We execute this goal through community involvement, education, advocacy, public outreach, member service, and supporting professional excellence. A couple of notes about our chapter. Of course, geographically, AIA San Francisco covers San Francisco and Marin counties. The chapter represents over 2,200 members practicing architecture, as well as more than 400 allied community professionals. In 2020, AIA San Francisco has put on innumerable programs, from educational lectures to community engagement events, and implemented several new initiatives to strengthen each member's experience within the organization and as a professional. We have almost 20 active AIASF committees who are promoting positive engagement with the community. In 2020, AIASF hosted over 100 member programs, all of which have shifted to online platforms since the onset of the pandemic in the first quarter of this year. We've been leaders at the forefront of many important conversations parallel with current events in our society at large. A few highlights to share. This year's AIASF Equity by Design Symposium was reformatted as a 6-part series with sessions that focus on how just and equitable policies and frameworks drive diversity and inclusive opportunities and practices in the design professions. The kickoff event for the series was in September, with following sessions continuing once a month on a Friday through the series capstone that will happen in February of 2021. Engagement's been very strong in this program with over 100 registrants bringing each session to capacity. In conjunction with the Equity by Design series, AIASF is running an ARE scholarship program that will offer financial assistance scholarships for licensure candidates who are eligible to take the ARE exams, thanks to the sponsorship support of the series. 6 selected recipients will be reimbursed for 3 ARE exams, regardless of a pass-fail status. With the support of our Architectural Licensing Committee, we will also be able to offer complimentary attendance to scholarship recipients at a selection of the chapter's ARE review classes. The deadline for applications to the scholarship is December 18th, so there's still time for you or folks that you know to encourage ARE candidates in your life to apply. In mid-January of next year, a jury will convene to select the awardees, who will then be announced at the closing Equity by Design session on February 26th. Another AIASF committee that has created fantastic online programming for the chapter this year has been the newly formed International Practice Committee. They have drawn great crowds online to their monthly panel presentations featuring international practice on global waterfront projects. These discussions have offered valuable lessons for current challenges facing the city of San Francisco's waterfront and will culminate in the International Practice Symposium next February. Fresh Brew is a series of online morning conversations that began earlier this year as a way to continue covering a variety of topics about all things architecture and design. The program will continue in 2021 to provide general public and industry professionals with engaging dialogue and a space for inspiration during these challenging times. Co-presented by the AIA San Francisco and the Center for Architecture and Design, the 17th annual Architecture in the City Festival went virtual this year and offered behind-the-scenes programs, walking tours, literature, presentations, and more that provided an excellent opportunity for all communities to experience architecture and design in a myriad of ways throughout the city. With the shift to online programming this year, we've been developing more digital communications, program tools, including trailers. Please enjoy this thank you video launched with the wrap of this year's festival. At this year's first ever online only Design Awards ceremony, our most ambitious video project yet, we welcomed over 300 live viewers to present recognitions for 22 fantastic projects representing the best of San Francisco Bay Area architecture and design. Top honors for this year's program went to WRNS Studio for their SF State Mashouf Wellness Center and Mork Olness Architects for the Shigard Hute project. We're also pleased to recognize 3 student projects with awards in the category of unbuilt design. This year, AIASF presented the 2-day Housing Symposium, Cracking the Code, in collaboration with the AIASF Housing Committee, and 3-day Sustainability Symposium, Leading by Design, which was complemented by a virtual exhibition in collaboration with our Committee on the Environment. AIASF continues to be a leader in design advocacy on key topics, including sustainability, urban challenges, smart cities, equity, and social justice. The chapter consistently articulates the values of our practice and their meaningful impacts on the built environment. Thank you to those who got involved and made our profession and our programs better this year. I'm pleased to announce at this time to announce the launch of the 16th edition of our Small Firms Great Projects publication. open to design firms with 19 employees or fewer, doing a broad variety of work across the Bay Area region. Our Small Firms Great Projects program provides an invaluable resource, elevating the work of our participants and providing broad exposure across our audience of design enthusiasts throughout California and beyond. We're pleased to highlight over 40 fantastic firms with this year's program. The publication also includes plenty of insightful editorial content addressing topical issues currently facing small firms and the Bay Area design professions. I would now like to invite Neil Schwartz to say a few words in celebration of the launch of Small Firms Great Projects. Neil's firm, Schwartz & Architecture, is featured in this year's publication, and Neil also contributed a fantastic editorial piece that we are sure that you will enjoy. This year, we're also proud to celebrate Neil's elevation to Fellow of the AIA.
Thank you, Adrian. I just wanted to take a moment to highlight the range of the thoughtful work being done by small firms in the Bay Area. Just a quick scan of the essays in this year's publication gives you a sense of the engagement and power of small firms in helping us all think through the impact of these unprecedented times. Notice, if you read the essays, the forward-looking, realistic, but optimistic tone of all their input. This vision and optimism is the lifeblood of creativity. Like Emily and Greg's design strategies to do more for less, not just to maximize every square foot, but as a broader vision of the future of urban living. Or Adam's ability to place his own work on ADUs within the long lineage of modernist designers focused on the creation of efficient and affordable stable housing, responsive to both expanded definitions of the local family and the dynamics of the global economy. Lev's essay, Architecture in the Time of COVID, expands the discussion to include the ways design thinking can and should provide fodder for policy on a wide range of issues facing the Bay Area, including climate change, affordable housing, and access to open space. This year's publication might also be worth its weight in gold for many who read Jeffrey's primer on how to survive the odyssey that is permitting small projects through our planning department. And thanks to Liz Waddy to hopefully guide us through that as well. And as typical of their work, Byron and Liz's design firm and think tank looks around for us at our changing world and models new ways of thinking about how we live and work and the resources it takes to sustain us. My own contribution to the magazine this year, Dang Paulette, tells the story of how a tiny family restaurant brought together communities of designers, contractors, material suppliers, and consultants in a way that enriched us all and had us hungering for more community-based work. The Paulette of the title is Paulette Taggart, whose career inspires me as a model for engaged architecture. I'll leave you with the thought from that piece that I think applies to so many small firms in the Bay Area and argues for the importance of highlighting them in publications such as this. This is not activism writ large, but rather a basic recognition that architects are collaborators, leaders, designers, and activists all rolled into one. It should not be considered extra effort, nor should we expect extra credit for it. It is precisely what we are trained to do. Thank you to AIASF for continuing to support this essential work. Thanks, Adrian.
Thanks, Neil. I have to unmute myself. I have to remember to do that. Thanks, Neil, for your wonderful contributions to the publication. Thank you to all of our Small Firms Great Projects participants for your work in creating a fantastic program this year. Now printed, the physical publication will be available at design showrooms across the Bay Area and Los Angeles regions, and will also be available at on-site AIASF events reopening next year. Digital version of the publication will also be available online at the AIASF website in the coming weeks. We hope that you check it out and join us in celebrating our community of small firms. Closing out our chapter's year in review, I'm pleased to note that financially we have a balanced budget and anticipate adding funds to our short and long-term reserves this year. Our total income is at $1,340,736.92. And our total expenses are at $1,281,612 and a penny, leaving us with a net revenue just shy of $60,000. You can view a breakdown of our sources of revenue and expenses on the slide here. Please also note that relocation expenses to date to be reimbursed by our landlord in 2021 are $367,925.67 and are not represented in these charts and calculations. In addition, we have worked together to improve the core services and support of our committees with new tools, policies, and procedures to be a more effective chapter for our membership and our emerging professionals. Thank you all for all that you do as a member. You are the core of this organization and the key to our success. Please continue to spread the word of the good work and get involved and engage with our outstanding programs and people. It's why we all do this. To make this all happen, we rely on our incredible leaders, along with the tireless effort and collaboration with staff at AIASF. We're honored to serve the chapter towards a better future, so thank you. Our next presenter will recognize the accomplishments of the 2020 AIASF inductees into the AIA College of Fellows. It's my pleasure to turn the online stage over to Paul Adamson, FAIA.
Thanks, Adrienne. Before we recognize this year's inductees, we'd like to thank all of this year's fellowship nominating committee members. The AIA Fellowship Program was developed to elevate those architects who've made a significant contribution to architecture and society, and who've achieved a standard of excellence in the profession. Elevation to Fellowship not only recognizes individual achievements, but also honors those select members before both the profession and the public at large as model architects whose contributions are deemed significant on a national level. Thank you to those who participated in the process of assisting our 2021 fellowship candidates with their submissions as members of this year's fellowship nominating committee. My most wonderful colleagues in this process, all fellows themselves, are the following: David Meckel, Chair, Mark L'Italien, Marcia Madem, Gregory Matola, Ed Ong, Dennis Paoletti, Mark Schatz, Ruth Todd, and Doug Tom. We're so pleased to honor the 2020 AIASF Fellows this evening in front of their local peers. This year's fellows are represented with the following slides and their individual summary statements. Javier Arizmendi. Javier Arizmendi successfully practices on a global scale, combining contemporary technical knowledge with an extraordinary diversity of regional building traditions to achieve genuinely innovative architecture. Javier Arizmendi, FAIA. Calvin Kam, a visionary educator, entrepreneur who promotes and advances industry transformation, optimizing value, quality, and resiliency of the global built environment through research, education, policy, practical implementation, and technology development. Calvin Kam, FAIA. Kang Qiang. Kang Qiang elevates the art and science of architecture practice through technical innovation and design research, supporting this mission through his role in management, his passion for multidisciplinary collaboration, and his investment in mentorship. Kang Qiang, FAIA. FAIA. Neil Schwartz. Neil Schwartz's distinguished career in teaching, policy, and practice is imbued with the ethos of the educator, one who leads by example and imagines the world not as it is, but how it might be. Neil Schwartz, FAIA. Pauline Souza. Architecture is an act of education. Pauline Souza manifests this mission as an advocate, a practitioner, and an industry leader. Through work with communities, clients, and colleagues, she creates a healthy, sustainable future by design. Pauline Souza, FAIA. Let's have a round of applause for our new fellows from AIA San Francisco. I'd like now to welcome David Hecht, the 2020 Assistant Secretary to the AIASF Board of Directors and the Chair of our Relocation Committee.
Thank you, Paul. And thank you everybody for joining the meeting today. And I'm going to take us through the kind of our process, what we've been doing, pulling together the relocation of the offices from the 6th floor of 130 Sutter Street to the storefront at 140, which I hope all of you have been following. I'd like to thank everybody on our task force, relocation task force, Paul Cooper, Tacey DeLu, Jessica Lane, Greg Novikov, Angela Chen, Amy Ress, Jennifer Suzuki, and Matt Staubel. Without their help, I mean, as a team, it's really been just really effective team to pull us together. And as we've been going through the planning and design of this for the last year and a half, earlier this year we began our capital campaign, which is necessary to realize the project. And I'd like to recognize the people on the capital campaign committee, including Adrian Steichen, Kathy Simon, Charles Salter, Chris Sarunas, Clark Manis, Daniel Perez, Doug Tom, Elizabeth Spohr, Francesca Olivero, Greg Novikov, Jessica Lane, Nathan Ogle, Michael Willis, and Peter Noon. So this process really is about a community of builders, designers. Our community just blessed with having so many different and talented people to contribute to this. And so we've likened this whole process to really kind of it's a barn raising in the best sense of the word. And I'd like to recognize all the various people who've been participating in the project thus far. We call them our dream teams, several dream teams. Our design dream team and constructors, basically A&E design team include Aileen Darling Design, BCCI Construction, AR Green, Lead Consulting, Atelier 10, Chris Downey, Murphy Bear Curry Structural Engineers, PAE, Mechanical, Electrical, Plumbing Engineers, Salter Associates, Simon Corden Wens on the assisting specifications, the Preview Group, and Tucci Lighting. Really appreciate all of the efforts they've been putting in the project thus far, and are just a short process point where we are. The design has been progressing quite a bit through the last few months, and we will be beginning demolition actually this Monday on the space. Also assisting us with the project in many different ways, Bruce Albert, AIA, who's been assisting us with the managing the overall project along with the landlord. HOK, who's noted here for assisting us in procuring FF&E, but also we recognize them for early on in the project. As I said, we've been doing this for about 1.5 years or 2 years, and HOK facilitated some of the initial programming and workshops to develop the program, which is complementing the strategic business plan of the AIASF. So thank them for that. Richard Barnes is assisting with documenting the project photographically. He started earlier this summer with the existing space and will continue to do that throughout the project. And then Tamsin Ryan is donating her services to to produce a documentary film, which we'll be using stills as well as videos, and that'll be featured probably sometime after we open the center in next summer. The dream team here, which is growing as we each day, goods and services offered to date. Go back here. These companies and organizations have provided nearly, well, over $700,000 in materials and goods and services to the project, and this is ongoing, and we hope to continue to do that throughout the project. Each of these firms here, I won't go through all of them by name, but they are either contributing specific materials and systems for the project or services. For example, BKF, is civil engineers, actually provided all the scanning for the project and as-built drawings for the project. So we'd like to thank all of these companies for their donations thus far, and we are looking forward to many more donations in goods and services from many of the Bay Area fabricators and suppliers, as well as contractors and subcontractors. So here's a quick review, if you have not seen this before, of our financials for the project. The initial design, as we would like to see it, was a little around $5 million. We are working to sort of have a more economical design, and let's continue to work on that. But and a lot of it will depend on the goods and services that are being donated to the project. So currently, we have the $600,000 allowance from the landlord that's available for the project, and then there's also loans if we need them. We're have that allocated for the project for the budget, and then the goods and services, which we have $700,000 currently donated. We'd like to actually exceed that goal of $1 million. And then the cash donations that we're looking for, we have a goal of $2 million. Ideally, we can maybe flip that and have $2 million in the goods and services donated and rely less on cash. However, we encourage everybody to contribute what they can. Without your contributions, we would appreciate your contribution to the project. So this is, we're making good progress. And again, it is a barn raising, and we're just really thankful for all of the goods and services that have been donated thus far, and that we hope to continue to receive throughout the project as the project design continues. So if you have not seen any of the imagery of the project, and just a quick summary here, go back a little bit. So this, we are moving to the former Hound space at 140 Sutter Street. This is directly adjacent to the entry to the 130 entry to the building. And so on the right, you see, on the left is how it looks currently, and on the right is our vision for how the project will look in the future. The idea being that we are this Center for Architecture, Dissemination of Architecture, educating the public, and have a very public and transparent presence for the public, as well as to the profession and our entire community. A little bit closer view. Here's a view, again, before and after. On the left, this is how it appears currently as you walk in the space in the former clothing store, and on the right, standing in about the same space. On the left side is the lecture hall, where we hope to accommodate about 120 people for lectures and events. And further back is administrative offices on the second floor and support services on the ground floor there. And to the left is, we hope to have a cafe and bookstore. I think that's in the next slide. Oh, go back one slide, please. Okay, another image looking in the back here. And you see on the right, this would be an event. This would be maybe during well, hopefully, next year, we will have this event in the space, and this kind of what it might be looking like, with the lecture hall opened up for all of us to be there and enjoying it. In the next slide, we'll see that. Here we go. Yeah, so this is an idea in the main lecture hall that in events such as our business meeting like this, we'd be able to sort of occupy the entire space. And on the right side, the wall that opens up to the cafe bookstore area would also be opened up so that we could sort of just occupy the entire ground floor. And our next slide.
That's interesting. How would that be possible? Who's old enough to retire?
This is what we have always done. Rebuild after a disaster. Whether it was Christopher Wren after the London fires in 1666, Dresden, Japan, or Berlin after World War II, post-Loma Prieta, San Francisco and Oakland, post-Katrina, New Orleans, or Notre Dame in Paris right now. This is what we do, what we have always done and will continue to do. We build. None of which could happen without architects. We are the seldom seen picture dictionary definition of resilience. In fact, we should just spell the profession with that R. Architects, for resilient architects. So when we are walking through the rubble of hurricaned or bombed out cities, or right now, as cities need a new design response after Corona, we should quietly hold our heads up and do what we do best. Dream of a beautiful, better, resilient city, and then make it happen.
So I apologize, I didn't get a chance to introduce that, but that was Michael Willis, former AIASF president, speaking there over that video. So capital campaign, 2 ways to support, see here on our slides. On the left side, there's you can donate directly to the Center for Architecture and Design. And those are tax deductible donations. And the other way is to help us name the new home. We have this, there's the link right there. So until January 6th, we are accepting suggestions, and we'll be selecting them after January 6th. I think we've received about 2 or 3 dozen thus far. Some of the pardon me, I was trying to find some of the, I can't find them right now. But we've, oh, there they are. Some of the top entries so far and voted, the San Francisco Center for Architecture and Design, the San Francisco Architecture Center, AIASF HQ, or the Architecture Shop, San Francisco Hub for Professionals. But we encourage all of you to give us some thought and submit your own suggestions, and we will be selecting those in January.
Thanks, David. It's now my pleasure to recognize 2 exemplary individuals with presidential commendations. The first presidential commendation goes to David Hecht. David's been this year's Assistant Secretary to AIASF's Board of Directors and has been serving as the chair of our relocation committee. As you can see, under David's strong stewardship, the vision for the headquarters, which has been an idea growing over the last several years, has taken huge leaps from a dream to a concrete reality. His dedication to this project has been tremendous and has resulted in amazing progress towards our goal. And we're so grateful for his expertise and guidance. So thank you, David. This year's second presidential commendation recognizes Charles Salter. Charles exemplifies AIASF's engaged membership. He was the first member to join our dream team for the new headquarters. Charles's passion for the project and ability to engage with the broader design and construction community for the benefit of the project has been extraordinary. With his firm occupying the office next to the chapter headquarters for so many years, Charles has been the best next door neighbor the chapter could have asked for. Thank you, Charles. Congratulations to our Presidential Commendation honorees. I'd now like to welcome Stan Liu, immediate past president of the AIASF Board of Directors and chair of the 2021 Board Nominating Committee.
Thank you, Adrian. This year has been a tremendous year for the chapter, and as we look forward to 2021, it is my pleasure to announce the AIA San Francisco Board of Directors slate for next year. First, I would like to recognize the Board Nominating Committee, which vetted the candidates. This year's committee consisted of myself, I'm Stan Liu, chair of the committee and immediate past president of the AIA San Francisco Board of Directors, and also from RMW. Adrian Steichen, AIA 2020 AIA San Francisco president from Piatak Architecture and Urban Design. Jessica Lane, AIA 2020 AIASF president-elect from EHDD. David Hecht, AIA 2020 AIASF assistant secretary from Tanner Hecht Architecture. Adamina Rodriguez, international associate, AIA 2020 AIASF director with AR Marine Consulting. Alberto Perez, 2020 AIASF public director from XL Construction. Douglas Tom, FAIA with TEF Design, and Stacy Williams, AIA San Francisco Executive Director. Thank you all for your hard work in vetting this year's candidates. I would now like to acknowledge the work of the AIA San Francisco board members and AIA California representatives who will end their terms of service at the end of this year. Outgoing AIA California board directors, Rona Rothenberg, FAIA. Karen Kribbins-Kuklin, AIA. Outgoing AIA San Francisco board directors at large, Irene Moniz, AIA. Larry Paul, AIA. Adamina Rodriguez, International Associate, AIA. And this is also my final year serving on the AIA San Francisco Board of Directors. Thank you, all of you, for your dedicated time and efforts and work on behalf of the chapter. Next, the slate of candidates to represent our chapter on the AIA California Board of Directors is Dan Hogman, AIA. Miriam Miri, AIA. And the returning members to the AIA California 2020 Board of Directors are Carrie Bernstein, AIA, Suhendra Mishra, AIA, Nathan Ogle, AIA, Matt Staublin, AIA. And now I am pleased to introduce the slate of candidates for consideration for the 2021 AIA San Francisco Board of Directors. Elected as Vice President at last year's annual meeting, Jessica Lane, AIA, will be the 2021 President. Those up for election to the 2021 Executive Committee are President-elect Vice President Paul Adamson, FAIA. Treasurer Daniel Perez, AIA. Assistant Treasurer Francesca Oliveira, AIA. Secretary David Hecht, AIA. Assistant Secretary Peter Noon, AIA. Adrian Steichen will continue to serve on the Executive Committee as the immediate past president. The 2021 directors are Yaku Eskew, AIA. Patricia Santino, AIA. Gray Doherty, AIA. And Doris Guerrero, AIA. The returning directors at large are Peter Noon, AIA. Greg Novikov, AIA. Tara Ogle, AIA. Lydia So, AIA. The returning public directors are Joseph Collins, Tracy DeLu, Magdalena Ryer, Alberto Perez, Jennifer Suzuki. Our returning associate director is Kevin Riley, Associate AIA. Now back to Adrian as she conducts her final act as president of AIA San Francisco. the election of the 2021 board. Adrienne, back to you.
Thanks, Dan. I'm pleased to present on your screen now the full 2021 AIASF Board of Directors. The names in red are those individuals up for election at this meeting. May I please have a motion from the floor to approve the 2021 slate of candidates as presented?
So moved.
Thank you. Through the Zoom poll that's going to pop up on your screen, all AIASF members in favor of the slate as presented, press yes, select yes, and any opposed, select no. If you are not an AIASF member, you should dismiss the poll or select abstain. And you're all getting a peek into how we conducted all of our board business this year. Thank you. The slate is affirmed by the members present. Thank you to all for your commitment, time, and effort. Congratulations to the 2021 Board of Directors. It's now my immense pleasure to introduce your 2021 Board President, Jessica Lane, AIA. Jessica Lane is an associate and project architect at EHDD, where she is broadly responsible for carrying project design vision from the initial proposal all the way through construction. Jessica has led production and design on technically challenging projects with a focus on higher education, civic buildings, and aquariums, such as UC Santa Cruz Coastal Biology Building and the Monterey Bay Aquarium's Sea Otter exhibit. Jessica is a people person who believes in the power of collaboration and the unstoppable force of creative people who are inspired by what they do. She's currently completing construction documents on this SF Marin Food Bank expansion and looks forward to being a part of the next exciting chapter in the AIASF's history.
Great.
Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you so much, Adrienne. Much appreciated. It's truly an honor to serve as 2021 AIASF San Francisco president. I'll try to make this short. Thank you everybody for staying through this meeting, despite the lack of schmoozing. As we look forward to next year, we see so many big changes on the horizon with a plethora of online programs, the opening of our new headquarters, which I hope you're all very excited about, and a gradual and much anticipated return to in-person programs and events. If you haven't been involved with the chapter up to this point, there's really no better time than now to start. AIASF's strategic plan charges the chapter with a number of really exciting goals that I think are more relevant now than ever before. It charges us to collaborate, connect to the community that makes up the built environment. We're charged to advance the profession of architecture by delivering valuable services, programs, and support that you all know and love, I hope. And lastly, it charges us to advocate for and advance the quality of life in the Bay Area through grassroots action and leadership. And this is especially something that we want to emphasize in 2021. So Adrienne didn't dwell too much on the finances, but I just want to give a quick shout out here. At the midpoint of last year, as you might imagine, AIASF was actually looking at a budget deficit in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. The chapter worked really hard to pivot and ended the year with a $60,000 surplus without any drop in programs, services offered. So I want to thank you, our community, for the strength, vision, determination, and probably stubbornness to pull all of that off and to support us during this really very difficult year. We didn't just survive, we adapted and we learned. So I hope you understand why I feel actually very optimistic about 2021. I think we were trained by 2020. We're at a pivotal moment in human history. Architects and designers are uniquely positioned to have a broad impact at this time of rapid change. What an incredible time to be an architect, and I really look forward to next year. So I hope to see all of you engaged in our services and programs. So of course, all the work at the chapter would not be possible without what is truly a rock star group of staff and leadership. We have, of course, Stacey Williams, Executive Director, Deputy Director Amy Ress, Alicia Arroyo, Dolma Chitang, Carson Maruka, Annabelle Udo-O'Malley, and Angela Chen. I hope that you've all had the chance to meet them, and if you haven't, please reach out. They are amazing, dedicated, passionate people. So thank you so much to the staff. And thank all of you, our community, collaborators, contributors over the past years, volunteers, sponsored, allied professionals, staff. You are all part of the community, and we are really excited to broaden our reach with the new headquarters and our new mission in the ground floor space of the Halliday building. And with that, I would like to call the 139th annual business meeting to a close. Thank you, and I look forward to serving as your president in 2021. And I join with the lack of gavel, but Heimer.